Hello, Globebusters. Yes, of course they're serious. You do? You have? No kidding. Uh-huh. Oh, they'll cure your globitis this week. Thank you. We got one!
Ladies and gentlemen,
it's the Globebusters.
What are you supposed to be, some kind of a cosmonaut?
No, we're exterminators.
And now, here's your host.
And welcome everybody to Globebusters, how NASA destroyed their best spherical proof. Not that they really had much of any spherical proofs, as Matthew Eugene Rosa so astutely pointed out in the Rockfin chat. It is kind of ridiculous, but nevertheless, these are the things that the ballers claim to, and so we're going to kind of take it apart. And, like I said, this is something that if you don't understand what is actually happening, what we're going to talk about today, if you don't understand what is actually happening with the sky and the atmosphere, right, as the globers would put it, then you're going to come up against globers that are going to pull angles out of their hat and say, well, you know what, the flat earth map doesn't work because of the angles are wrong. And in the spherical map and the spherical way of looking at things, they work, right? Well, that is true to a certain extent. You will also hear the ballers, based on this very same outlay, the way they look at this, you'll also hear them claim that a azimuthal equidistant, no, I'm sorry, not an azimuthal equidistant, what am I saying? A EQ mount, equatorial mount telescope will only work on a ball Earth, right? And that's absolutely not true, because all they're doing with the EQ mount telescope is they are substituting the personal atmospheric dome, which we all see in this dome over the top of us, and instead they are replacing that with Earth curvature. So it's a nifty little trick, but that's not the only thing they do it with. They also will sit there and say, well, if you've got if you are at the North Pole and you look up and you'll see Polaris, and then you step back and you go back 1 degree and you look up, it's going to be you'll be 69 degrees away and you're going to be 1 degree off Polaris, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so basically this is their so-called proof that they come up with, is this optical type of proof. Well, today we're going to go through a video by Dr. Zack. And it's funny because I'm not sure if I had seen it or not. I thought I had seen every one of his, but somebody posted it in the Globebuster Skype group today, and I looked at it and it's like, wow, how did I miss this? And it was really cool because, basically it showed some things as to why the ballers think that they've really got us on that, EQ mount telescope, and as well as the, move a degree at 69 miles, etc. type of thing. But we're going to go through that, and we'll let you guys decide, because I think once you see what's actually going on here, you're going to find that there was an event that happened 4 years ago that completely and utterly destroys that model. And of course, what I am speaking of is the eclipse that happened in August of 2017. Is that right? Yeah, 2017. That was the one where we took and launched our balloon. If you guys remember, we went to Nebraska and launched our balloon there and got some really, really fabulous footage of the eclipse in totality. where there was no penumbra whatsoever. But we also took about a bazillion other photos, which did not reveal any earthshine on the moon. And of course, the reason for that is because it's not the moon that is causing the eclipse. And this event, you guys may remember, was one of the events that people were saying, well, wait a minute. According to the heliocentric model, it can't last any more than something like 3 hours and something, right? And instead, it lasted about 5 hours. So then what we saw from the mainstream and NASA is they came out with this blitzkrieg of news reports all over the place saying, oh, we may have underestimated the size of the sun. It could be much bigger than we thought it was. And this actually came out in publications all over the place. And like I said, I knew this was going to happen, and I saved all these publications. But then when they realized that they were basically dead to rights on that, what they did is they deleted all that information off the web and then acted like it didn't even exist. So why is it that happened to them? Well, we're going to find that out today. We're going to go through a video with Dr. Zack. And it's going to be great. I wish he could be here in person to do that, but we'll go through his video. And I'd bet that probably most of you have not seen it. And like I said, I'm a devout Dr. Zack fan, but somehow I missed that one. But anyway. All right, but before we get to that, let me go ahead and introduce our panel today. First up, we have John the Morgile. How you doing today, John?
I'm doing very well, Bob. Thank you, sir. Hope everyone's out there is doing just fine as well. And as we mentioned a moment ago, I'm going to be switching over to my PC, so I will unceremoniously do another check once I've switched, just so you know.
Okay.
All right. But yeah, thanks for having me. A pleasure to be here, and looking forward to a great show.
Awesome. Okay, cool. And then we will go on to our next panel member then, which would be Zack Zabala, otherwise known as Good Times for All. How you doing today, Zack?
Hey, Bob. Doing real well. Thanks for having me. It's a little warm. I don't know. This weather down here, it's nice, but I'm not used to it being this warm for this long.
Yeah. Tell me about it. Well, coming from Colorado, I grew up in a non-arid, climate. We didn't have any humidity there to speak of. And coming here, it's kind of brutal. It really is. But and unlike Hawaii, when I first went to Hawaii, I thought, oh my God, the humidity is terrible. 3 days later, you get totally used to it because you got the trade winds going and all that stuff, and everything's really cool. And you're just used to it. And I was hoping that would happen here, but unfortunately, here we are down here in South Carolina a year later, and yeah, the humidity is still brutal. So what do you do?
Yeah, well, being in a valley, not on a mountain, but like in the mountain, I think we just don't get enough wind coming down through this right through here. So the humidity, it just sets and lays on you. Yeah, it's different. I've never been in a spot like this, but getting used to it. But yeah, the heat, it's been above 90 for a while now. I think we had one day that wasn't in the last 3 weeks. Yeah, I'm just not used to it being this warm. But the garden's doing good. The garden's enjoying it.
Yeah,
we have all kinds of tomatoes that are just about ready.
Yeah, we do. We have a great garden. And of course, the property that we got here, I don't know how many of you have seen our house. So a lot of you people actually have seen our house. It's really a nice house, and the property's gorgeous. It's like living in the middle of a forest, and we have a river running through our backyard. And, it's just like, wow, what a gorgeous place. We really lucked out when we got this place. So we're pretty happy with it. And thank you so much for the super chat and also the super sticker, T-Burger. And let's see, we got a super chat from Mark Smalier. He says, I figured out how to stop this COVID. If you could explain to Arwin 33 Flat show that he got elite. Okay. All right, dude. I'm going to answer this because you were nice enough to super chat, but I have seen you honestly in the chats and emailing me. And frankly, in my opinion, Arwin is a flake. Okay. He's a complete nut job. I don't really care what happens to him. I have no pull with him whatsoever. And, I honestly couldn't give a damn if he's got the COVID or not. So, I'm sorry, and I hate to be so stark, but I just don't give a crap about that guy. He is bad news in my book, and I try to ignore him at all costs. Okay, so that's all I'm going to say about
the last person Arwen is going to listen to would be Bob. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, he'd much rather go around and spread rumors that I support child pornography and stuff like that. I mean, that guy is a complete nut job. So yeah. But anyway, thanks for the super chat, though. I appreciate that. All right. God, what a way to start out the show. All righty then. So, where was I? I think I was coming up to, let's see. Yeah, I got you. I got John. Oh, I forgot about John. I forgot the other John. And last but not least, we have Mr. John Savage with us. How you doing today, John?
Cheers, Bob. Hi, John. Hi, Zack. Yeah, doing well, mate. Coming from prison Britain still, but yeah, talking about the weather. Cool, blimey. Last week I was boiling alive, and this week I'm building an ark. So yeah, I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, I heard it's. The weather is just flipping crazy everywhere. Like Seattle, I guess, is getting. They didn't get rain for the longest time, or they haven't gotten rain for the longest time, and then the temperatures are way up out at sight, and it's just nuts. It really is. It's nutty all over the place. I don't know if it's being manipulated or, if this is just some sort of natural cycle or what the deal is, but it's crazy.
Yeah, who knows?
Yeah, it really is. But whatever. So I hope you guys like the background video that's playing here. We've got, this is a combination of live ISS footage and also spacewalk footage. And of course, it just looks so real, right? It looks so fake. It's got to be real. And
you tell it's real because it looks so fake.
Yeah, totally. I had some guy actually send this to me as proof this week that, all those craft were up there, and people really, really think that this is real. When 2 seconds of critical thought, you can debunk this, in every way, shape, and form. And it's just ridiculous. I mean, this is clearly shot underwater, or through water. You have two different ones. We actually caught them red-handed, where there was a news feed. What was it? This is about 3-4 years ago. There was a news feed on one of the network channels, and they said, "Okay, and we're going to switch over to the live ISS and crew, and we're going to see what's going on there." And they flipped over to it, and what they flipped over to was like a little kind of makeshift propped studio shed that had this mock-up of the space station in it, right? And it was sitting there, and there are two guys walking around working on it. Do you remember that, John?
Yeah, I do indeed. It's funny because they clearly use a variety of different ways to fake it, but when they're caught red-handed like that, it's just funny to me because you would think with the budget that they have, they would avoid such just blatant, obvious hiccups, right? I mean, good God.
Yeah, you would think so, but it's crazy. That, and all it takes is a little bit of scrutinizing, and you can see. So there's so many giveaways that they're underwater, whether or not it's bubbles, or if there's like a belt that's floating and their foot is close to it, and of course if the foot gets near it, it's pressing water into it, right? And then it reacts to that water. Now, if that was vacuum, obviously that would not be moving it around in any way, shape, or form, unless, of course, they're going to say the gravities from his foot attracted it, which would be patently absurd. Especially when it's going at 17,500 miles an hour, right?
on this one here...
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, John. Oh, I was going to say, have they ever really addressed the whole reason why they have green screens in the pool? I've heard people say that they say it's because it's going to help the astronauts, but the astronauts don't see what's on the green screen. All they see is a green screen.
Exactly. And if they are looking at a green screen, then why would they need to be looking at the green screen? What possible reason could there be? It's just ridiculous. So
And I was going to say here, like for what we're looking at here, it's pretty obvious they're using a fisheye lens, right? Because all like the straight line items that are part of the craft are curved and the horizon's curved. You know, for something like this, I wouldn't be surprised if this is actual high altitude footage because, I mean, otherwise, why would they be using a fisheye lens to fake the curvature? I mean, that seems like what they're doing. I mean, and maybe they are doing this underwater. I don't know if we're going to see somebody walking around out here pretty soon, but I don't know. I mean, to me, this looks like high altitude footage, which may be actual high altitude footage. I don't know.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, it's a good point. It's a good point. Why would they use a fisheye lens? And they clearly have, because that solar panel's bent.
Yeah, the solar panel's bent.
Exactly.
Yep. And Neil deGrasse Tyson says there's no way that you would see the curvature up there. He says from there, that stuff is flat, right? And, you know, also it also appears that there's no way that vehicle is moving 17,500 miles an hour. It's barely moving at all. And, you know, obviously the ballers are going to say, well, that's because it's so high up. It's going to appear a lot slower. But no, that's, you know, we get all kinds of different speeds on here. But frankly, this looks like there are times when this just dead stops, right? And you got to remember, this is moving more than 10 times the speed of a bullet, right?
It's meant to be circling the Earth every 90 minutes, isn't it?
Yeah.
This thing would be flying underneath.
Yeah.
Right, because if you view it from the ground, it goes from horizon to horizon in what, like under 5 minutes? Is that right?
Well, it can go as high as 8 minutes, but typically it's around 6 minutes, anywhere from 4 to 6 minutes, typically from the ground. Yes, and yes, it does go from horizon to horizon. You know, depending on where it is. But if
like based that on what we see here, it just doesn't seem like that matches up. I don't know. I mean, we know that they're faking it somehow, but I don't know. It just seems so obvious to me from where we're sitting. You would think that more people would see it.
Oh, without a doubt. I still think my presentation for the 2019 FEIC, where I debunked it, you know, still stands. I mean, there's no way that you could have any object up there that is supposedly reflecting sunlight. First of all, how is it getting the angle of the sunlight to reflect down into your eye? And it's doing this for like 8 minutes, 6 to 8 minutes, which means it's going anywhere from 2,000 to 2,600 miles or the entire width of the United States, right? And somehow this whole time it is keeping that reflection that shouldn't even be hitting the ISS because it's so low compared to the Earth, reflecting right back down into your eye the whole time. It is not even possible. Anybody with the most minuscule of geometry education should be able to understand that. There's no way that it could possibly work out. You know, you can't even see the curvature up there, let alone reflect sunlight. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
250 miles up is the equivalent to, probably half an inch above the surface of their ball, isn't it? Of a classroom ball. So how it's reflecting the sun when it's the other side of the ball and the Earth is in between the sun and the ISS is just, none of it just makes sense at all. And like you say, it's reflecting a light at you personally for 8 minutes and everyone else apparently.
That's right. And the crazy thing is this doing it entirely on sunlight because the angular size of it is less. Actually, when you calculate it out, it's like less than 1/10 of a degree, I believe, which is far less than the angular resolution limit of the eye, right? But and that of course diminishes inversely, to the distance. But the thing that's crazy about that is the light diminishes to the square of the inverse of the distance, right? So that the light is actually going down at a faster rate than the angular size is, right? And yet somehow it never changes size going all the way across the country. And look at this. This thing has not changed significantly at all. All we're doing is just getting different angles of it. It's not like we're going anywhere. This is just absolutely unbelievable that anybody would ever believe this.
It's almost as if it's just hanging from a balloon or something.
Yeah, Yeah, almost. Ay, caramba. Anyway. All right. So let's see. What else did I want to cover on this? Oh, guys, I want to say something that, I got to tell you, I have to tell you, I am really kind of bummed out by the reaction that we got from a lot of the people on Sunday. Okay. Now, a lot of you know that we recently moved the Sunday show to the Rockfin platform. Why did we do that? Well, we did that because, for several reasons. One, because we can have complete and total free speech there. Two, they actually pay us a decent, amount to produce content on there, right? So we can actually get a little bit back. And three, because of the fact that we are behind a paywall, that gives us a certain degree of protection from kind of Orwellian laws that are coming into existence or will be coming into existence, that basically will be charging that, anybody that is broadcasting on a public platform that can, that the general public can access anywhere, is doing so recklessly and endangering the public, right? This is the case they're going to make, but they can't really make that case if it's behind a paywall, right? So that gives us, so we can actually say whatever we want to there, and they can't really come at us with that charge. But so that's the good thing. So a lot of people said, well, what are you going to do with the rest of the show? And so what I did, of course, is I created the Wednesday show, which is today's show, right? And we've been running this for a little over 2 months. And I did this because I knew full well that, there's going to be people out there that cannot afford Rockfin. And I get that. And I totally am with you guys. And I want to keep getting the message out there. And as well, YouTube is also still one of the best places, to disseminate information, even if we have to be very careful what we say here, right? But so I created this show, and, the reaction that we got, and of course, there are some trolls out there that they don't really, they're just going to say things because they want to do anything to tear the channel down. But I was really disappointed by some of the longtime viewers of this channel that are, accused us of gatekeeping. I'm gatekeeping because I'm doing this. And it's like, I don't even understand how you could make that charge. That's absolutely outrageous. And it's like, no, I'm not gatekeeping. I'm simply trying to, A, earn a living, B, keep everybody happy, and C, keep my channels, and D, disseminate as much truth as I can. And for those of you that go around screaming, well, truth should be free, really what you're saying is you're telling everybody what truth, how much truth is really worth to you. And that means nothing, right? So truth is not.
How long have we, and how long has really everybody in the truther community been talking about moving away from YouTube? I mean, it's been a conversation we've been having for years. And so finally, you take a step and do it. And then, of course, you're going to get blowback. I mean, you can't keep everybody happy all the time. I mean, that's just one of the things we're going to have to deal with, I think.
Exactly. And somebody asked, what does gatekeeping mean? Gatekeeping means that we would be keeping information away from you. And granted, there is certain information, obviously, that on normal YouTube, we cannot disseminate. But if we dared do that, we would lose our channel. So, 6 one way, half a dozen the other. So you just have to be a little bit careful about that. So all I'm saying, guys...
I was just going to say, Bob, even the videos where you guys don't cross the line, those videos still get taken down a half hour, 2 days later. So, yeah, the people that get to see it live, the ones that are there, okay, you can be upset about not seeing it live, but think about the 30,000 other people that don't get to see the videos at all anymore now because YouTube takes them down. We need a place where the content we put up is going to stay up.
Well, it goes retroactively too. I mean, they can pull stuff that you did 2 or 3 years ago and hit you with the strike on it today. And if you get 3 of those strikes, then guess what? Your whole channel's taken down. All your videos are deleted. And so it's like playing roulette, really, putting your stuff on YouTube. And if you're not backing it up somewhere else, at least, it's very risky. I mean, it's something I deal with every day because Well, I mean, there's been a couple times where YouTube has gone back years into my channel history and found, a community guideline strike, and some of those are permanent, so like they never go away.
Yeah,
and it's just
exactly.
crazy.
So all I'm saying, guys, is look, I'm really trying to accommodate everybody here, but don't come at us and say we're gatekeeping and we're truth should be free and we're cutting you out of the picture. And you should hear some of these people. They're like, oh, it's been nice for all these years, guys, but I guess I can't, I'll never be able to see you anymore. It's like there's some freaking story. Like, dude, are you aware of the Wednesday show? It's like, it makes me crazy. It really does. So, and a lot of you, so many of you have actually come over to Rockfin, and what I will say is those of you that are supporting us on Rockfin are making it possible for this show to be here as well. And so, it's a good thing. Everybody wins on this. Nobody lost anything. Everybody wins. And, I just really get tired of hearing these sob stories and accusations that we're gatekeeping. It's not that way at all. And so, I don't know what else to do to make people happy, but, this is my solution. And I think it's a good solution. And if you don't like it, well, there's always somebody else, right? That's all I can say. And I'm not going to bitch about it anymore.
There's always NASA on YouTube, but yeah, I wouldn't listen to them, Bob. You're never going to please everyone all the time, and there will always be people that are vocal about these sort of things because they can, and I don't know, it brings them attention or something. But if you can't afford the Rockfin subscription, then don't whinge about it. Just deal with it.
Yeah, exactly. So, so anyway, and if it's important and something that's groundbreaking, of course, in flat Earth, of course, it's going to be on the Wednesday show. There's no doubt about it. But when it comes to things like current topics that we do occasionally discuss, that we all know what I'm talking about, that we cannot discuss on YouTube, if I dare utter a word, say sayonara to the channel. So I'm not going to. So anyway, all right. Anyway, but like I said, everybody that has been supportive, thank you so much. And, for those few of you out there that, basically just want to whine all the time, call a ambulance. I don't know what else to say. All right, cool.
Pound tacos.
That's right. All right. So let me stop this for a second. And I think I want to, I want to show you guys this. I don't know if you guys saw this or not. I know Zack did, but this particular video is by a group called Kriyasan, right? And Kriyasan are these Russian guys, and usually they're doing crazy experiments with electricity. And Zack loves watching them, and so do I. But I mean, these guys are really ballsy. So what they did is they went out to an old abandoned Russian space facility in the middle of freaking nowhere.
Nowhere. In the middle. You could see for miles in every direction, and there was not another building around. I mean, nowhere. Sorry, Bob.
Oh, no problem. No problem. Go ahead and annotate all you want.
Yeah, that was the craziest part about it. I mean, look at them. This building is just like, who does that? Let's build a giant, space station facility and put it 50 miles from anything else.
It almost looks like Kennedy Space Station in Florida. It's a very similar building there. Yeah, it really is a similar building.
Yep. So anyway, they're in there. They get in there finally, and they manage to get inside. And it's funny because there are a couple points when they're talking about, oh God, there's 3 men in uniform that have come in that you can kind of go along with us and think that they're going to get busted and stuff. But so then they get in there, and lo and behold, what do they find? Look at this. The old Russian space shuttle, right? And what they find when they go into this thing is, you would think that it would have been something that was real, but it's not. And what it is a complete prop from the get-go. Nothing is functional. Everything is decorative in it. This was meant for a studio production. Everything about this.
it was 95% complete, ready to go to space.
Yeah.
That's what they claimed. This wasn't supposed to be a prop. There's one that is. The one in front of it, there's two of them in the hangar. The one in front is a model. It's supposed to be a model. But the other one was supposedly 95% complete, and it's just as fake as the model is. They're good. Yeah, you got to watch this video if you haven't seen it. And the saddest part is, though, these intelligent guys can't figure it out.
I know, that's sad. I mean, they really believe that it's real for whatever reason. And so, they can do that, but it's like, it didn't register to them that this is all completely a prop, and that obviously that they're faking this. That was the entire purpose of this. They get inside, they go to all of these things. A lot of these things, like I said, are just containers, like all these little things go inside and you open it up and there's nothing in there. Right? Nor was there ever anything in there. It was nothing more than a decorative prop. It's absolutely insane.
And doesn't it even say replica on a lot of the stuff in there? That they mentioned that multiple times. Like, look, it says replica right on here. These aren't even real circuit boxes.
Yeah. So why? And why would one be real supposedly and one be replica? And they're both exactly the same.
And honestly, the whole concept of flat Earth is so far beyond the pale of what anyone would consider. I mean, we were all there. Like when I first heard about flat Earth, I thought it was ridiculous and didn't bother even looking into it. And that's how most people are. And so when somebody, like this stumbles across something where, some red flags go off, flat Earth, I mean, faking space is just so far beyond the pale of what anybody would imagine. Frankly, I'm still astonished that we're even having this conversation. Like, I'm astonished that this truth got out because of how well they indoctrinated everybody when we were little kids. They get you young, and to me, it's a miracle that we even got this far. So.
Flat Earth's one thing, though, but you would have thought the Russians would be savvy on the Americans faking the moon landings. That, I would have thought that would have been common knowledge over there. So I don't know. Maybe they just
they're
can't.
in on it. To me, I concluded. Yeah, the only thing that it could be is that the Russians and the United States are in on it together. They're in collusion. And they have to portray themselves as sort of, frenemies, like Cold War frenemies, because that's the perfect sort of Hegelian dialectic. I mean, go back and read George Orwell's 1984. I mean, it's the exact sort of thing that governments do to control the masses. Is they have the boogeyman overseas where you put all of your fears and all the negativity on them. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, that group of populace overseas is pointing the same sort of finger at us over here. And so it really is the sort of the perfect mind control device. But yeah, Russia and the United States have to have been in collusion. I would say that probably goes for the Chinese as well. And so, no, Russia, I'm not surprised at all that they didn't point out, that the moon landings were fake. Just as the Sputnik scare prior to that, that was a big kerfuffle in the media over here in the United States because allegedly a Russian spy satellite was overhead. And of course, that wasn't called out as bull in the media. That was, it was given a huge platform in the media over here. Again, because they are silent partners, I believe.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, obviously Russia is in on the Antarctic Treaty, along with many other countries that, are supposedly our enemies, right? China, Russia, et cetera, et cetera. And of course, Yuri Gagarin, when he's supposedly, being the first man in space, right? And he's describing what he's seeing up there. And remember when he said he could see Panama? There is no way he could have possibly seen Panama from where he was when he was reporting it. And he got busted dead to rights on that, but yet, and the United States could have called that out right then and there, but they didn't, because again, this just goes to show and prove that there is deliberate collusion between the space agencies, and all of them are doing this. And it's all, and like I said, it's not for something as simple as, we just want to get money. There's a much, much deeper reason for all this. And it ties very much to, everything that's going on today,
Yeah, I wouldn't expect any media to be revealing secrets like this in any of the countries, but the people themselves. It's like even in America, what was it? A third of Americans didn't believe the moon landings happened on the day of the moon landings. That was one of the headlines, I think, in the papers. Even.
Really?
Mm.
I had heard of very few people being in disbelief, but I had always sort of grown up thinking that everybody was on board with the moon landing. I mean, maybe that's just more, media hype. But I will say that the United States put a lot of effort into predictive programming into space travel. I mean, look at all of the sci-fi movies and TV franchises that were in effect leading up to the 1960s moon landing ventures. And, to me, it's no surprise that they did get, I guess at least 2/3 of the people bought it. And hell, that's plenty enough, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway,
and these guys are definitely, sorry, Bob, in that boat of, fearing the United States. These guys, and they even mention that Chernobyl melting down was an inside plot done by the Americans to stop the Russians from putting this one weapon they were working on in that area up in space. They mentioned it in that video. So yeah, you're absolutely right. Even smart people fall prey to all this nonsense that's shoved in our faces daily, our whole lives.
They're looking at the evidence right in front of their face and cannot put it together, and yet refer back to the old propaganda programming that, they have been programmed so well with, right? As do, so many people around the world. It's absolutely astounding. If I walked in there and saw a bunch of props, I'd be going, what the hell? But then that's me. I don't know. I just don't even know how anybody could look at this and not be suspicious. And, I'd almost betcha, if somebody to write to them and say, did it ever occur to you that maybe there's something else going on with this? If they wouldn't say, yeah, maybe there is,
Am I wrong? I haven't been there, but my kids have, to Kennedy Space Station or wherever NASA's museum is, but they've got a similar shuttle in there, and inside it looks like a theme park ride. It's totally fake, it's like, has anyone been there and seen, and they do claim that was a real shuttle, a working shuttle, and inside it's just like, it looks entirely like a children's play ride.
No, when I was there, they were still using the shuttle, so they weren't on display or anything like that yet. But I did see the lunar lander from the 60s, and the first thing I asked my dad was, okay, where's the real one? No joke.
Yeah.
I asked and he said, no, that's it. But you couldn't get close. There was, the red velvet rope, and then it was set off a good 50 feet to where you couldn't get close to it.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, if you think about the inside of a cockpit of a Boeing 747 or something, I mean, there's literally thousands of buttons, dials, screens. Every square inch of that cockpit is taken up with electronics. And inside the shuttle, it's just like, a sort of CRT screen over here and a twiddly knob over there, and it just looks like the inside of an amusement park ride.
Yep, absolutely. So anyway, guys, that's it. I posted it in the chat a few times, but it will be in the show notes. But absolutely amazing. These guys have some major balls doing this. That's all I can say. Oh, I would have been freaking going into a government facility like that, an old abandoned one. Wow. So hats off to them.
These guys have gone into Chernobyl and stayed for a few nights. I mean, these guys are nuts. They've done some pretty crazy stuff.
They truly are.
Have they not been picked off by the secret police or whatever? I mean, they're not hiding their identity or anything, are they? So.
Nope. Well, I don't know. And maybe at some point somebody will do something, but there's as long as there's plausible deniability, I don't think that anybody's going to resort to assassinating a bunch of kids that have a really popular YouTube channel. You know, that would not be a good look, you know, for the Russian Federation. So anyway.
And the fact that they were fawning over space the whole time, they probably don't care. You know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's exactly. They weren't pointing it out as it was a fraud. They were pointing it out like they believed it, you know, which is crazy.
Maybe that's why they did point it out, is that they believed it.
Yeah.
Like David Icke talking about lizards and shit.
Yep.
It's a bit of an insurance policy, maybe.
Yep. So, and then this, guys, we played on the Sunday show, and I just wanted to show it to everybody here because this is hilarious. I'm going to play, this video is by Space Fool, and this is a SpaceX SN9. And what you're going to see here, now we've talked about these being CGI, or at least the launches being CGI and stuff like that. But this particular piece of evidence is showing that the entire launch complex is CGI. And there is no doubt about it. None whatsoever. And you know what? This is the wrong one. This is the one I wanted to do next afterwards. Let's do this one. Okay. So let's go ahead and play this one. And what we're going to see here is look at this structure, guys, and look at it compared to the background. And what you're going to see is the entire facility, the entire structure itself is jiggling all over the place in the foreground versus the background, which is, you know, setting stable, right? And I mean, it is really obvious. There is absolutely no doubt. There's no way anybody could ever deny this entire thing is being CGI. And that's what he's pointing out here. So this is absolutely mind-blowing that they would put something out this bad, because even blind, deaf, dumb, stupid, you know, completely blind ballers should be able to see this. And if you can't, I don't know what to say, because look at that. That is so obvious.
Oh.
Is that outrageous or what?
That's not anything pan. That's not like the camera moving or anything like that. You can see. Yeah, look at that pole moving on the ground. Wow, I can't believe that.
Yeah, it's I mean, this is a dead to rights bust, guys. I mean, and if you show this to people, you know, and they deny, I mean, how could you even deny something like this? This is something you simply cannot deny. And as outrageous as our claims may be, that we've said that many of these things just appear to be CGI, and not always can you put your finger right on it. But on this one, oh boy, can we put our finger right on it, right?
They'll say heat haze, or you just don't understand how the lens of the camera works, Bob. Cool.
Yeah. Exactly. So that's crazy. And then, of course, I'll go back to this one. Now, this one is amazing because this has got the SpaceX, you know, going up. And then when it comes down, there's a malfunction and it blows up. But when it blows up intact, right? It comes back to being intact. And you'll watch this very carefully here. This is very much like what happened on 9/11. Remember when the plane went through Tower 2 on 9/11 and the nose came out the front, right? And then they had to completely re-edit that. Oopsie, right? This is kind of like the same type of thing. They have a frame here where a piece of the nose of the rocket itself comes up and out completely intact. And it's about to happen right here. In 3, 2, 1. This is so crazy. Okay, now he's gonna zoom in on it. In case you didn't see it, he's gonna zoom in on it, and then you'll be able to see it. Trust me, guys. It took me a couple times to see this too, and it's like, and then when you see it, it's like, oh my God, how could this even happen? And again, we're just taking a frame by frame analysis. And you're going to see it pop back up here. Okay. Come on, zoom in on it. Oh, this is not the right area. Let's go. Well, there it is right there, but let's get a better shot. Well, he'll do it. I guess he'll just let it play. So you see it right there?
Yeah.
How is that possible, especially in the orientation that it came down?
Yeah,
and
it
then,
should be laying on the ground, right?
Yeah, and then in one frame, it just goes away. Boop, just like that. It's gone. So the guy that actually caught this had a great eye, and he caught both of these things. And some people just don't do it, and there it is, all gone.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, you gotta
I
love.
was wondering if I had seen when they just played it normal, because it didn't look right. But yeah, right there.
Yep.
Yeah,
So
the rocket should be laying on the ground. The
Wow.
nose should be on the ground. Yeah.
And the thing is, I mean, since we know that they're faking everything, it's just a matter of how deep do you want to dig. I mean, you can pretty much take anything that the space agencies put out, and you can bet your bottom dollar that they're faking some portion of it. So, I mean, if you dig deep enough, you're bound to find something. And yeah, I mean, this is pretty obvious one too, isn't it?
yeah, and of course, all that rocket fuel, I mean, things would have disintegrated instantly. And for that thing to come up intact in one frame and then disappear is clearly CGI editing. So even their screw-ups are CGI edited. They're all planned. They're all plotted. It kind of makes you wonder about things like, I don't know, Challenger. Think about it. There it is. Look at that. Gone.
That's incredible.
Back one frame. There it is. You cannot miss that.
Well, yeah, the one thing about the Challenger that got me the most was when it blew up, the teacher's parents were smiling.
Yeah.
I couldn't, because that was early on when I first started going through Flat Earth and tearing apart NASA. But yeah, just sitting there watching that teacher's parents just with big giant grins on their face right after it happened.
Robbie Parker.
Mm-hmm. Little Duper's Delight, maybe.
Yeah, I know. Now we can't say too much about that on this stream, though, but we all know what that's about. So anyway, I wanted to show you guys those because that, that's just amazing. This and that. So the entire structure is fake. Their wrecks are fake. Their launches are fake. Everything is CGI. And, there's going to come a point, guys, at some point very near in the future when we won't be able to detect CGI from reality. We're not very far from it. And when that goes away, I mean, there's always going to be glitches, but as it gets better and better and better, people are going to buy into it more and more and more. That's why it's really important to, every time you find something like this, archive it, and keep it around. And that's exactly why I archived all that stuff about the eclipse several years ago. Go ahead, John.
I was just going to say, it's like the deep fakes now. I mean, if you're not even looking for CGI or fakery, then you're never going to see it. But even when you are looking for it, it's getting harder and harder. And the deep fake stuff is quite frankly, it's quite worrying. They can make anyone say anything and do anything, basically.
Yeah, it really is. Well, and well, God, I can't even talk about what we're going to talk about on Sunday because anyway, guys.
Speaking of holograms, did you guys see the video, the phone video footage of the Pope? He was giving a speech or something, or
on a balcony.
Yeah, and he turned around, and then all of a sudden it was just disappeared.
Yep.
He was
disappeared.
gone.
Yeah. Well, that happened once, a couple times, during the elections, and I even made a comment about it. It was funny because they had some footage on CNN that it appeared that Obama was actually CGI'd, and how many times have we seen this Biden footage that is it's one of two things. It's either point blank CGI'd in, which some of it is, or there's a stand-in, which I think there actually is, or there's somebody wearing a mask, And I mean, so all of these examples are so blatant. It's like,
And the
wow.
So-called astronauts on the so-called ISS fading in and out as they go through into another room and stuff. They fade to nothing before they've gone through the door.
Yeah, exactly.
Really bad.
Or just boinging around, whatever, it's absolutely ludicrous. So, here we are back at the ISS or whatever. All right, so I want to run a quick little commercial here for Karen Bees and Flattoberfest. And guys, if you have not signed up for it, believe it or not, tickets are going really fast for this. I mean, this is one of the fastest selling Flattoberfests we've had. The venue, I think, is probably the nicest that we've had. And, it's absolutely amazing. Of course, it's going to be cool. It's going to have a bowling alley, and there's going to be skee ball and all kinds of crazy stuff like that to play. It's going to be actually a lot of fun. Lots of things to do and lots of socialization. 2 full days of this. I will be speaking there. Several other people will be speaking there, and we have all kinds of surprises that are going to be going on there. So if you are not signed up, you may certainly want to consider it. So let's go ahead and play Karen B's little advertisement for it here. Here we go.
Flattoberfest 2021 is almost here, and it's happening in historic downtown Spartanburg, South Carolina. This is a great opportunity to meet other flat earthers, connect in real life with online friends, and interact face-to-face without restriction, just as the creator intended. This year we have 2 full days of events planned for you of presentations and live music. Featuring Marty Leeds of MartyLeeds33.com, Bob Nodell of Globebusters, Jason Lindgren of Secrets of Saturn and Crow777radio.com, and ODD TV will be performing live. Mike Williams from the Sage of Quay Radio Hour at sageofquay.com. Flat Earth Intel with Corey Kell. And some of your other favorite content providers will be there. More to be announced soon. Go to flatearthfestivals.com/Flattoberfest 2021 for information, updates, and tickets.
Yeah, keep rubbing it in, Bob.
Are you single? Are you a flat earther? Are you going to Flattoberfest 2021? Do you want to meet other flat earth singles? Then you should participate in the secret mingle for single flat earthers. A little something I'm putting together for FE singles who are going to Flattoberfest 2021. This is the perfect opportunity for you to meet like minds face to face in a friendly environment with no pressure. If you're going to Flattoberfest 2021, there's no extra cost. Go to flatearthfestivals.com/secret mingle for details. I hope to see you there. Cheers!
There we go. Beautiful. And thank you to Karen B for that. It's going to be a fantastic event, guys. So if you haven't signed up for it, please try and consider going, because tickets are selling like hotcakes. And I mean that sincerely. It's amazing how well the sales are doing on this particular event. So hopefully the world will not go crazy and fall apart before the event happens, and everything will come off like it did last year, which was absolutely beautiful. So there we go.
It's already falling apart, Bob. It's already fallen apart.
Well, that's
UK
true.
Can go, that's for sure. But hasn't Dave got a thing due out on his app for meeting other flat earthers as well coming up?
He does on the Flat Earth, Sun, Moon, and crap, whatever it's called app.
That catchy name that no one can remember.
Crap, whatever it's called app.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sun, Moon, and Zodiac clock app, I think.
Yeah, that's it. I've only had it for like a year and a half, 2 years, something like that. Yeah, he does have a feature that is brand new that's just being added. I don't know if it's available for download yet, but some of us have gotten it on the beta version where we're able to try it out. And yeah, it will actually identify flat earthers either in your zone, and you can actually set how close you want it to identify where you are. So if you don't want it pinpointing you, but rather just being in your city, that's okay. And then people can contact you that way. So that way, I mean, obviously I think that was a really good thought on Dave's part to put that in there.
Yeah. Can you limit it to country? Just in England?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I know that, here in South Carolina, it's, I can just put in my city and it's not going to show exactly where I am at my house unless I want it to, which I don't think I would want that, but, you certainly can if you're out in a public place, sure. Why not? What the heck? So
I think it's a great idea. Great
yeah.
idea.
Yeah, I do too. So there we go. All right. So, all right. What was the other thing I was going to do? Having a brain fart here.
It's about time we had another UK flat Earth conference. So.
I know. They really do need another. Oh, I know what I was going to say. If things fall apart, let me tell you one thing about. I don't think that's going to happen. I mean, it may happen in other states around the country, but I got to tell you something about the political environment in South Carolina. Our governor, McMaster's, dude's a rock star, man. He is so, he is not going to let any of that stuff happen here. I'm not going to speak too specifically, but he's very much against, mandates of any kind. He's very much dialed in to not allowing federal, authorities to usurp the sovereignty of the state. And he's very outspoken about it. I mean, the dude's awesome. So I got to say that about it. So the last place this is going to happen is here.
You don't often hear politicians being described as awesome, but that is good. I've worked out that I've only got to raise $900,000 to get a residency in America. So anyone wants to stick their hand in the pocket and buy me a residency.
Yep. So somebody's asking me, hey, Bob, ISS with the naked eye, ISS with the telescope. I'm not exactly sure what you want, but Chris, if you want to see how impossible that is, and I break this down to the nuts and bolts, angular resolutions, I do the math, everything, look up on our channel, on the Rockfin channel, and it's actually free. The 2019 FEIC presentation on the ISS. It's called Oh My Stars, It's Impossible or something like that. I think that's what I named it. Anyway, yeah, if you want to see why it's impossible, there it is. And if you want to know what it is, I'd say that the chances are very good. It's one of two things. It's either a U2 that's been decked out with high intensity LEDs that are on the fuselage and on the empennage and the wings up there, or it is a product of this. And I'm going to go into this in a little bit, the laser guide stars. You guys do realize we can write things on the firmament, right? Most people don't realize that, but we can actually write things right on the firmament, and they do it routinely. No secret. They just kind of put it under a different type of technology. And then you're going to say, what firmament? And I'm going to cover that, and I'm going to prove why it's there. A lot of people say, oh, well, if the sun was that close, it would be really, really, really hot there. And it's like, oh, really? Like maybe this hot? Well, we'll get to that in a little bit. All right.
Is that laser stuff, is that on the so-called sodium layer up there?
Yeah, the sodium layer.
Right.
Which is so freaking absurd. You know, it's like, really, why would there be a sodium layer at 100 kilometers just kind of hanging out there that you can irradiate with a yellow laser, 450 nanometers or whatever it is, or no, I don't think that's yellow, but whatever, that you can irradiate with the laser and create an artificial guide star. Really? I mean,
Yeah,
you got to be
water. That's why.
Got to have rocks in your head to believe that, man. But the firmament and lots of other crystals absolutely do have properties like that, right? And Cami knows this. Cami has been talking about this. There are lots of crystals that will react this way, that will photoluminesce, and that will respond to specific stimuli, and on and on and on. But I'm kind of digressing, so let's not go there yet. I'll touch on this a little bit here in a little bit. But right now I want to move on, and I want to go through this video with Dr. Zack here. And the name of this video is called How They Fooled the World with Deceptive Calculations. And it came out March 9th, 2021. Like I said, I don't know how the heck I missed it, but I did. So hopefully, if you haven't seen it, this will be a treat for you. And if you have, I apologize, but it's always good review because, I find that no matter how many times you listen to this, it really makes it good in being able to kind of cement in the way that it actually works, which is really quite a bit simpler than you would think. But it's far easier and far simpler, far more plausible than the nonsense that NASA feeds us for how they describe things to work. And so I really appreciate Zack's work. He used to be called Dr. Zack. Now he's called Decimal Z. And he's a member of FE Core, really fabulous guy. And so let's go ahead. Anybody want to say anything before we hit this? Nope. All right.
Nope.
Let's go ahead and give this a listen. Here we go, guys.
This video was made in collaboration with Nick from Nawov channel.
We have already talked in many videos about the shape of the Earth, and we want to make this clear. We already know that the Earth is flat. But only a few flat earthers know the problems that the flat earth model has yet to solve. And this is not to discredit the flat earth in any way. Our position is clear. But we have to understand all aspects well if we want to make a complete analysis on the subject. We must face the problems that come our way and work together to solve them. One of the problems which we as flat earth researchers did not pass up can be summed up in one word: angles. It is a...
Now guys, this right here is what the globe earthers, this is what they cling on to. And this is their proof, basically for why the earth could not possibly be flat, right? And, as evidence goes, yeah, okay, it could be considered as evidence, but there is another far better explanation for it, which Zack is going to get to. But they really do hold on to this dearly, and this is a huge part of their argument. And
now,
also,
I'm going to make an assumption here, Bob. I haven't seen this video yet.
Okay.
I'm going to assume that all of their angles are having to do with lights in the sky. That's my guess.
I'd say that's a good guess.
So they're taking measurements of something that they don't know what it is, how far away it is, how big it is, and then it's not really proof. It's reverse engineering it any way you want it to be, pretty much.
That's exactly it. Reverse engineering. And like I said, the one thing that the Globers are famous for is eliminating any type of perspective, which means that, refraction is only valid when it works to supposedly falsely bend the light around and create an Earth that appears to be flat, right? Oh, that's just refraction that causing that. Of course, the Black Swan completely annihilated that argument. It's destroyed that 10 ways from Sunday, not to mention the dozens, hundreds of other observations over, long distances, over lakes, over water, with lasers, without lasers, with accelerometers, with gyroscopes, etc., etc., etc. And okay, guys, before you say, "Oh yeah, Bob, that's right, you proved it with 15 degrees per hour with your gyro," get a life.
Thanks,
and get the rest of the story. That's one thing that makes me crazy is they don't even know what the rest of the story is on that. The producers of Behind the Curve deliberately withheld the rest of that experiment and what happened. And what happened is we proved unequivocally that, all we had to do was take different measurements on the same exact latitude at different points on the same latitude, different elevations on the same latitude. And we got, as high as a 1.8, nearly a 2-degree variance per hour difference, right? That can't happen on a ball Earth, guys. That's what the guys at Behind the Curve were supposed to report, but they didn't. And they admitted why they didn't, because they said, "Oh, well, gee, you got kids involved in this. Now it's serious. We have to speak out against flat Earth because you guys are getting kids involved in this." It's like, yeah, we are, because we're telling them the truth. And, yes, so they never put that proof in there. And I have released all of that data to the ballers. It's gone around, everybody's gone through it. And of course they disgruntlingly say, "Well, yeah, it does show that, but we don't know anything else about it. So you're lying about it," whatever. But we have no counter proof from them. So whatever. All right. So let's continue on. Sorry about that little sidetrack there.
A very interesting topic. So let's see what it is about. We must first know and understand how the globe came to be from scratch. For this, we have to travel back to the past, but you must drop everything you have learned about space, planets, spherical Earth, and everything else you have learned until now. Thousands of years ago, the first humans tried to understand and study the universe. If you picture yourself in that era trying to do the same thing, the first thing you would do, being an intelligent human being, is create time. To create time, you probably need the lights that revolve around you. So, what is the best light to start with? The sun, because it is the greatest light and it is what we see every day. So, starting with the sun would be okay. You start by putting a stick perpendicular to the ground. You observe and realize that the shadow draws different semicircles throughout the year. Then you see that the sun moves further away and comes back later. The weather changes as the sun and moon move. Then you start thinking about seasons. Then you realize that you need something to navigate, so you create the compass. Then you realize that all the other lights in the sky are connected. Then you create the astrolabe to measure the angles of each of the lights in the sky at the same time. So you keep discovering and learning more until you finally create the signs of the zodiac, knowing that the magnetic energy of the stars can affect people too. Imagine the energy that moves the oceans can do to the human body.
It's so weird watching Zack speak in Spanish. Basically, he's he's talking about the astrolabe. And when he talks about the lights being tied together in the sky, I mean, they really are. There is no parallax in them.
You get smarter and smarter until you decide to know the shape of the place where you live. You only have sunlight, shadows, probably a tape measure, and your brain. To understand this, I invite you to stay and watch the entire video, because it is very important and it is not that difficult to understand.
And it really isn't.
We are located 2,000 years ago in the time of Eratosthenes. At that time, you would probably believe that the earth is flat, because it is exactly what you observe. The first thing you might want to do to understand the universe is to measure the distances between us and the sun, moon, and stars. To do this, you will have to triangulate them. So obviously you're gonna start with the sun. So you're gonna need at least 2 sticks. You're gonna place them on the ground as far as possible from each other because the sun is obviously big. Then you measure the shadow of the 2 sticks at the same time to get the elevation angles of the sun, and then you measure the distance between them. So for example, if the distance between these 2 points is 2074 miles and their elevation angles are both 75 degrees, then the distance to the sun will be 3870 miles. Here is the math behind it. It is very simple. But here is the problem that made people of that time doubt that the earth is flat. Look at this diagram. This is the earth, this is the sun, and these are the angles of the sun during the 12 hours of the day.
And again, guys, remember, this is exactly what the ballers are claiming on today. And one thing that they don't even want to acknowledge is the amount of refraction that would be changing angles in the atmosphere. This is one of those things where they would like you to believe that all of the sunlight rays are coming in perfectly straight, you know, and theoretically, if the sun was really 93 million miles away, it absolutely would be, because what other ways could they come in? But the point is that even in a heliocentric model, right, it would come in and it would hit the atmosphere and it would make a huge deflection. But what we see here on the ground is we see a deflection in multiple directions, right, which is not really too commensurate with, you know, what the globe Earth would be calling, you know, for to happen, right? So it's very, they very much cherry pick in this particular area. Of course, what else is new? So let's continue.
If you are here at 75 degrees and a friend of yours is here, but on the other side at 75 degrees, the altitude of the sun will be 3,870 miles. So, if you want to do the same experiments with more people at the same time, but from other positions on Earth that are on the same line, they won't get the same results. And there is the problem. You and your friend will get the same distance as before, but the other people who are further away from each other will get smaller distances to the sun, even if they are all doing the experiments at the same time. The altitude of the sun will be lower for the second person, and for the third, it will be even lower, and so on and so forth. But how is this possible? The angles should only intersect in one point because we only have one sun and not many suns. So how can other people see it at different altitudes? How does the sun set and rise? This graph was made by me based on real angles and real scales. So what would you do to solve this problem? Based on these results, if the Earth is flat, there may be no way to solve it. Let it be clear that the objective is just to understand this issue. We are not saying that the Earth is a globe. We know from many evidences that it is flat. In the next videos, we will talk about the problems of the ball, but for now, let's just continue with this topic. As I already mentioned, all angles have to intersect in one point. For example, if you are in a hallway and you put a spotlight in the middle, you walk away and measure the elevation angle of that spotlight, you will get the distance to it, which will be pointing directly at that spotlight. If you move further and do the same thing, you will get the exact distance to the spotlight. This is how it works. But when it comes to the sun, it doesn't work that way.
Right. So basically what he's saying is, you know, when we add more objects in to perform these trigonometric calculations, we should be able to actually increase our accuracy of the distance of these, you know, the light in the sky or the object that we're triangulating. But instead, it turns out that the more that you do that, the more non sequitur it becomes. In other words, you start adding in more data points, and it, instead of correlating, it becomes more and more random, right? So the problem with that is pretty obvious. But so what could be causing that? And I'll give you a spoiler alert right now. What causes that is the lensing capability of the atmosphere and guys, I've said this a million times that I believe that there is a firmament there. The sun itself is behind that firmament. And I'm going to offer you proof to that. Like I just gave you a little hint of a minute ago, I'm going to offer you proof of that. And you're going to see that, there's a good possibility that the sun is there. It's behind a firmament. And at the very least, we have an atmospheric an atmospheric lensing type effect that's going on, right? So, and of course, the fact that we even have air pressure next to an alleged vacuum tells you that we've got to be contained somehow, right? That's an old argument. The ballers would want you to believe that it's all being, held in with gravity, which is a completely preposterous argument and can be completely blown away every way but Sunday. But for now, let's follow Zack, and then I will get back to why I believe that the firmament is absolutely there. All the many reasons why I think it's there. Let's continue.
So Eratosthenes, or whoever did this experiment for the first time, realized that the Earth could not be flat because of this specific problem. So they thought about curving the Earth downwards to make the geometry work, because it has to work one way or another. What happens when the Earth curves downwards? The angles of the elevation start to move upward. So what will happen if we keep bending it downwards? Eventually, these angles will become parallel to each other and will continue to coincide with reality, because by curving the Earth downwards, we don't change the shadows at all. In this case, we will have only one sun, because all these lines are pointing to one direction.
Okay, great. So basically what he's saying then is that we have backed these off. We have diverged the point sources back far enough where ultimately they're all pointing straight up. And this, guys, is the reason why they had to say that the sun is 93 million miles away, right? Because the angles would never work on, a sun that would be 3959 or not 39, but 3,400 miles or whatever, 3,500 to 4,000 miles where we think that the sun and the moon are. And even then, I don't necessarily believe that they are that far out, because again, we have this optical lensing effect that is going on that Zack is going to explain. But this is the reason why they had to move the sun so far away, is to make this actually work. Where they're bending
and
this back.
I believe it was like 300,000 miles back then that they claimed that the distance was. So it seems like the more they advanced, they realized the further away they had to make it to make their model line up with reality.
Yep.
Because they've had how many different measures? I know it was 3 million, 12 million, 33 million. It actually went up to 126 million at one time. Then they backed it up to 93 million again.
Well, and let's not forget either, when Eratosthenes was allegedly doing this original experiment or whatever, they never would have imagined that light waves would bend. They assumed, incorrectly I would add, but they assumed that light travels in perfectly straight line paths. They had no reason to believe otherwise. And the effects of, atmospheric lensing or refraction, the idea of refraction wasn't even introduced into the scientific discussion until like the 1500s. And so instead of curving the Earth, they never would have thunk to curve the light waves. But I think that's exactly what, I know that's exactly what's happening. It's not the Earth curving underneath straight line path light waves. It's light waves curving above a flat Earth.
There you go. All right. So let's continue forward then. And this is really amazing how this all works out. But then, boy, talk about somebody getting their cornflakes peed in. That's about to happen very soon here, but let's continue on.
because they are parallel to each other. This is why they tell us that the sun rays are parallel.
So basically, he's just showing here the strip on the bottom is akin to the angles that are being measured from different points of the Earth. And then you'll show as he bends it and turns it into a curve, they will come out just like the drawing showed a minute ago, and they'll all point straight up towards the sun, which necessarily will then have to be 93 million miles away, or a long, long ways away, where it really won't matter what side of the Earth points up, especially if the sun is 400 times, further away than the moon, and how many hundred times bigger than the Earth, whatever it is. So essentially, for all practical purposes, it's going to be in one direction, and everything will point at it.
In other words, they curve the Earth so that the angles start to make sense. So the question is, how much should we curve the Earth to make these lines parallel to each other without changing the angles, of course? Because these angles are immutable, as they can be measured in real life. What is the circumference that can make all these lines appear parallel and at the same time intersect at one point in the sky? How do we do that? It seems impossible. Parallel means they can't intersect, but we must make them intersect or the bald model will fail too. They told us that Eratosthenes measured the circumference of the Earth using shadows only. How did he do it? If you got the angles and you were smart enough to realize that after every 1037 miles, starting from the 90-degree angle, it is always 15 degrees minus. You will see a formula through these numbers and you will be able to make a shape out of it. Anyone with a simple math brain can do that. If you want to curve it down, you must create a circle with this exact radius of 3,959 miles. And there is no other radius that will work for the ball Earth and match reality. And all you have to do is follow the mathematics of Eratosthenes. Let's explain it. We must take a circle and divide it into 24 equal parts. Each part represents 1 hour. It is the time we use today. And as I said before, humans created time. We chose the day to be 24 hours for some reason. So if we divide a circle into 24 hours, what will happen? No matter how big the circle is, all of these angles will remain the same. When you divide the circle by 24 hours, you get 15 degrees at each angle. Once you get this done, you will have to do something else. You have to draw a line from the center of the circle to the sun. So if you want to measure the angle of the sun, it will give you 90 degrees, no matter how big the circle or the ball is. This angle will be 90 degrees, and this will always be 75 degrees, and this one 60 degrees, and so on and so forth, on all scales. So there will always be 15 degrees between each line. By doing this, we are already assuming that the light rays are parallel to each other. For now, this is the only way to make the angles work. So what do we do next? We need to know the actual circumference of the circle. If we assume that the Earth is a globe, then it has to have a circumference. How do we measure the circumference using the real angles of the sun? Here comes Eratosthenes, who supposedly calculated it 2,000 years ago. And today, we still use his math as a proof. What he did was measure the distance in real life between this 90-degree angle, Syene, and the second point on Earth, Alexandria. And then he measured the angle of it and did his famous math and got 25,000 miles. So yes, by knowing the circumference, all the elevation angles that we observe will begin to match reality. If you go anywhere in this circle, all you have to do is measure your angle, and if you compare it to real life, you will get exactly the same angle. It's really a cool idea, because you can tell where people are just by knowing their elevation angle and azimuth. You can also know what their angle of elevation is simply by knowing the distance to them. You can even draw the map of the Earth using these angles. And you don't even need a satellite or a plane to do it. Do you see the catch here? All people will think that this is the true model even if they have never really seen the shape of the Earth. So imagine if we can make the angles work on a flat Earth. We will win the debate forever, because all the other evidences can support the flat Earth, but not this one. But after knowing the circumference of the Earth, the size can never be changed, because any change in the circumference will cause the angles to change too. But in real life, the angles cannot be changed, so no one can mess with the angles. This data is important because many people think that the globe may not be the size that we have been told and that it can be bigger. That is false, because if the ball is bigger, the real angles will not work on it. The angles of the sun in real life force us to have a single circumference, which is the one we use today.
All right, so basically what he's saying is by deriving these calculations based on these sun angles, then the Earth must have a radius of 3959 miles, right? This is what they're extrapolating out of it. Now, I don't have to tell you how folly that actually is, especially since we have debunked R every 6 ways from Sunday. But in order to make their model work going out to 93 million miles, and we know the angular size of the sun, right? That everything has to go along together. But if you change one variable, then you have to change all of the other variables because they're all inextricably tied together. Okay, so this is about to become a really big problem for them. So let's continue.
Any change in size, the angles will start to change and will not match reality. So after discovering the circumference, they realized that they had a little problem. How can the sun rays reach Earth in parallel lines? If the sun is a circle or a ball, then all the light rays have to come from the center. That is to say, from one point as seen here. They clearly realize that light rays cannot be parallel because they must intersect in one point. So, for the math to work, the sun cannot be close to Earth because the further away you place the sun, the more parallel the angles will appear.
Entonces ya tenemos líneas paralelas. Esas líneas nos tienen que llevar al Sol, pero el Sol es una bola, entonces esas líneas tienen que cruzar en un punto en el centro del Sol. ¿Y cómo lo vamos a hacer? Pues solamente hay una solución, porque matemáticamente las líneas paralelas no pueden cruzar en ningún sitio, ¿no? Pero nosotros tenemos que hacerla cruzar, que si no vamos a tener un problema. Entonces vamos a poner el Sol lo más lejos posible, ¿vale? Y en este caso, ¿qué va a pasar? Las líneas, los rayos del Sol, digamos, van a aparecer como paralelos, ¿no? Van a aparecer como paralelos desde nuestro punto de vista, desde la Tierra, pero van a cruzar en el Sol, en un punto. Paralelos desde la Tierra, pero van a cruzar en el Sol. Entonces, solamente la única opción es poner el Sol lo más lejos posible.
The size is not a problem because we already know the angular diameter of the sun, 0.52 degrees, because it can be measured by simple tools. So wherever we decide to put the sun, the angular diameter will help us calculate the size. So they have to put it as far as possible in the model so that we can see the light rays parallel to each other from Earth. So that means that if the sun is 93 million miles away, the difference between the parallel lines will be immeasurable. The further away the sun is, the better your math will work, and no one will know what they are doing. But if
Yeah, isn't that convenient, right? So just putting it way out there, they found that optimal distance of 92,980,000 miles, and you know that lined up with their 0.52 degree angular size of the sun, and made all the math work beautifully until that bad old eclipse of 2017 came along and screwed it all up. Let's continue.
If you ask them how they triangulated the sun, they will get nervous because they will have to use the fake trip to the moon. They only need the size when it comes to an eclipse, but when it comes to angles, they only deal with the sun as a point because the size of the sun can be determined as long as you have the distance. If you have the distance, you have the size. If you have the size, you have the distance. That's all. So if you modify the distance, you have to modify the size. This is how it works.
Yep, and this is the Achilles heel of the problem here. So we have supposedly the size and the distance, but then all of a sudden, when we ran into this little problem that he's going to detail here in a bit with the eclipse, all of a sudden the astronomers started admitting and putting out all over the place, oh my goodness, looks like we may have completely underestimated the size of the sun. It could be up to 400 times bigger than what we thought it was. And then they realized that was a bad idea. But let's go through that.
In fact, the distance to the sun has always changed throughout history. And every time they change the distance to the sun, they readjust everything else. But something strange happened in 2017 in the largest eclipse of the year over the United States. On August 21st, on their own website, they say that the duration of the eclipse is 5 hours. So if you do the calculations of the globe model, you will see that the eclipse should only last 4 hours and something. So with this eclipse, they have almost an hour to spare, and they know it. At that time, several NASA scientists began to say that the sun is much larger than they thought. They admitted that they need to increase the size of the sun to make the eclipse and the math match reality. The news came out in different media and several notes were replicated. They said that the sun was 250 times bigger than the actual size they have told us.
Yeah, 250 to up to 400 times as big, depending on where you read it. But yeah, I just find that incredibly comical. And as you can see, all these news articles at the time that this was happening, because we were actually watching this happen. We were in Nebraska during this eclipse, and we launched our balloon and all that stuff. And there was a huge debate about it then. And it was funny to watch all of these so-called experts that were coming out trying to, resolve it, right? And they failed on an epic level. And finally, they got to the point where they just kind of ignored it and pretended that it didn't exist. But we're not going to let them do that, are we?
So, Bob.
Oops. Yes, sir.
Sorry. So we're taught that the sun is like 800,000 miles wide, diameter.
865,000 miles, yes.
And they're now trying to say that could be up to 400 times bigger than that?
Yes, in order to explain the eclipse, that is what it is required. Oops.
Okay. I missed that one.
But as Zach is going to point out here, it's like, NASA, they finally wised up and they said, this is not a good idea to be saying this, right? Because you changed
that would change the size of everything.
Everything. Yes.
Everything. I mean, I heard that they were sort of saying it was, I don't know, 80 miles bigger, or I never heard it. Wow.
It's nuts, isn't it?
Yeah, Sorry, carry on.
All right, let's continue on.
But now, those news articles disappeared from the internet, and all we can find now is that NASA scientists say that the size of the sun has to be a bit bigger so the eclipse calculations can work more precisely. This is very relevant, because what they are clearly saying is that the size of the sun is a theory, and of course, the distance to it is also a theory, but most people do not know about this.
Yep, he just nailed it right there. The size and the distance are both nothing more than theories. And for you clowns that have come to me saying, oh no, we've measured it with radar, not only have I explained to you why that is impossible with radar, now you know that it couldn't have been done anyway, or this wouldn't be a theory, right? So, it's like every time they turn around, they just kick themselves in the butt. They really do. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm enjoying watching the show. Break out the popcorn. Let's continue.
We know that the angular diameter of the sun and moon are equal to 0.52 degrees. And this can never be changed because anyone can measure it. So if you claim that the distance to the sun is exactly 93 million miles away, then the size has to be exactly 844,038 miles. It can't be what they want. If they change the size, they will be forced to change the distance to keep the angular diameter as it is in real life. So right now, they are saying that for the math to work perfectly, the size of the sun has to be a few hundred miles larger than the actual size. But if you make the sun 250 times larger, you will put it so far away that the distance would be much greater, enormous. And what does that mean? If you change the distance, you would have a bigger problem, because if the Earth orbits the sun, you are changing the radius of the Earth's orbit. Also, by changing the size of the sun, you would have to change the speed of the Earth. And by changing the speed of the Earth, you would have to change the speed of the moon because it orbits the Earth. You would also have to change the distance and the sizes of all planets. That is to say, if you change this and that, everything will be out of square and you will have to change the entire model. But they are too smart to do that in this era of internet. They will never change it because it would make everyone doubt the official science. So they better ignore it and not talk about it anymore. But we would not let that go. So the question is, did they teach us facts or just theories? If your calculations work, does it mean that the world we live in is exactly what your calculations say? The answer is no. Because they are constantly contradicting their own calculations. Look what they said about the atmosphere. It's always been 300 miles up. They taught us that as a fact. But now they are saying that the atmosphere extends far beyond the moon. So the globe model is not the truth. We can say that in some things it works better than the flat earth model. We can say that it is more accurate and the one we rely on today. But is it the true shape of the earth? Of course not. Also, you can't compare that model with ours because we barely started it a few years ago and we don't even have their budget. But let's get back to our topic. As we said at the beginning, the biggest problem with our model is the angles. Apparently, they don't work on the flat earth, and we have to make them work. But how do we do that? This cannot be solved by playing with maps or discussing which map is correct or using flight durations, time zones, Coriolis effects, and so on. If we want to create a correct model, we have to solve the problem of the angles, because once the angles are in the right directions, the map will be accurate. If you fix the map, everything else will work. We must mathematically understand why this person sees the sun at this altitude, while this other person at the same time and in another position sees the sun at a different altitude. According to our studies, there are two options. One, curve the earth downwards and make the light rays parallel to each other as we have seen. 2. Refraction. Curve the sky and create an individual curved sky for each eye and make it function as a concave lens, which distributes the light rays in a way that makes all the angles work as in the bulb model. This may sound strange, but I did it and it worked.
Yeah, he did. And in fact, guys, he did it in this video right here. And it's called Flat Earth, Globe Earth Mathematically Debunked. And he did this with the guys over at Flat Earth 101 channel, Boss Darling, I believe is the guy's name. He designed it on AutoCAD, and then they actually built this thing out, right? And he was able to basically turn a table into mathematically prove that that flat table was a ball, right? So he absolutely did do it. This will be in the show notes. If you have not seen it, this definitely dresses out the rest of this argument. And absolutely, you know, this is fabulous. It really is. So I just wanted to show that, and then let's go ahead and get the rest of this, and then we will finish this out. And the other one is completely in English, by the way. It's very rare that he does these in Spanish, but I'm not sure where this clip came from. So basically, we have a few different ways to look at this. We can say that we have a dome of perspective, right? That we see from our eye, because our eye is a ball essentially. Or we can say, what he did in that other one. Let me go back to this. And essentially what we did here, and you guys I'm sure have seen this. Let me find it. But what he did is in this light, if I can find it and we're in the right place, this light right here, what he did was he took a half sphere, a hemispherical type of magnifying glass right here. Here we go. He put it in the top. So basically, if we look at this as the firmament, okay, and then you have the sun and the moon being within the firmament, so that's the light being back here, right? Then what you're going to do is you're going to see the sun at different positions everywhere underneath it. It'll be a lot like if you look into a swimming pool, right, at night, and you look at the lights, and those lights are in a completely different place when you're looking at it from the top. Or if you're in the pool and you're swimming along at the bottom of the pool and you look at the lights on the outside of the pool, they will be largely fantastically distorted away from where their true position is. So they've got an apparent position and they've got a true position. What causes that? Well, here it is. You have a hemispherical type of lens, right? Or you have your dome of perspective with your eye, or a combination of both, right? And again, the Bible describes it as being within a firmament, which is this vaulted area, which contained the sun, the moon, and the stars, etc. And like I said, in a minute, I'm going to show you some more evidence that proves that it's there. But let's, I just wanted to show you that because, how he's doing this is he's got this. Well, he just showed it actually a second ago. On this one right here, he said he already did it, right? And he actually shows it with the light up above there and the dome and the concave lens, and you've got it there, right? So that's how I can do it. So let's go ahead and continue this out, and then I will move forward.
It becomes impossible to triangulate the light source, especially if you don't know which lens was used. So you stand in there trying to triangulate the light using the same method as in the first part. You will realize that the lines will not intersect anywhere because of the refraction they did not tell you about. Then you will think that the shape of the table you are standing on is not flat. This is gonna be your answer if they didn't tell you anything about refraction that affects the light or the shadows you see. If you knew, you would have done a different math. If you are there at that big table without knowing that there is a lens that refracts the light above you, then according to the calculations of Eratosthenes, you will think that you are standing on a ball and that the light source is very far away, which makes the light rays be parallel, because this is the only way to make your model work when refraction is the hidden key.
Right. Now, guys, and remember, this is exactly what they're saying. To see, this proves our point. This is absolutely true. But again, what they do not take into consideration, whether the firmament is actually there or not, the thing that you cannot take away is the shape of our eyeball, right? In that it is a convex, lens essentially on it, right? And that's what gives us our dome of perspective. So we see things in a circular type of path, but unfortunately, you can't apply that perspective to the ball earth model, because if you do, then what you have is you have a double sphere, right?
Well, what it is, in my opinion, in the firmament aside, is we don't live in a vacuum. I mean, the atmosphere is definitely a liquid. It behaves as a liquid on the macro
fluid.
Well, fluid, whatever. Yeah, I mean, but it has properties that are refractive to light, and it's going to vary from day to day. I mean, some days you'll have a higher refraction index due to maybe it's more humid or maybe it's a drier day. But at the end of the day, we exist in the atmosphere. And no matter where you're standing, you're going to have an actual position of the sun and an apparent position of the sun. And only when it is directly overhead will the refraction index be about zero. Other than that, the further away the sun is from, directly overhead, the refraction index will increase with that. And so, we have what I guess Jeran has coined as our personal atmospheric dome. But each of us exists within the atmosphere, and that's going to refract the light coming from the sun or the stars for each of us individually. So it is it's a what's the word I'm looking for? Subjective. It is not objective. It is a subjective thing.
Yes.
That is cannot be. I mean, there's no denying it.
That's right. And it forces the Globers to completely deny our own perspective. And they do this all the time, right? Because they're always giving us this side view, right? What does Nathan call it? The perspective hijacking, whatever it is, and that's exactly it. We don't look at things from an orthographic view. We look at things from a POV view, right? And our POV view is a dome, right? Point blank. Right. So we've got that is undeniable. And then we have also the very likely possibility and or probability of the shape of the firmament and how it could be causing different apparent light positions. Right. But and like I said, you can completely dismiss the second one, but you can never dismiss the personal perspective that we all have. And they do that all the time. That is simply impossible to do. And this is exactly why you can take this, and I think I'm just going to stop that right there. And you can look at like this thing right here. So we've got P-Brain, which also has shown this very clearly. Let me find where I want to show you guys this. Let's see. Okay, so here it is. Right. Actually, I'm just going to go ahead and play this part of it right here. So listen to what P-Brain says about this personal atmospheric dome and how we actually see things, because this is right on the money.
Sky goes down below the horizon. So keep that in mind now as I show you how the stars are. And let's say the stars actually spread out for hundreds, thousands of miles. Let's say we can't see them all. We can only see the dome of our perspective vision, which is about a 12,000 mile diameter circle or 6,000 mile radius.
Atmospheric dome.
That's all the stars we can see. And the stars lower to the horizon at the edge of that circle, of a 12,000 diameter circle. So as you move, this dome of stars moves with you, or your dome of vision, I call it. Anyway, let's check it out. Well, just like, let's say you're standing at the North Pole, right? And the stars rotate. You have Polaris overhead, and the stars are rotating around you counterclockwise. As you move south, Polaris starts to lower in the northern sky, and the stars start to tip. It's almost, I like to think of it as like a salad bowl, right? And so the salad bowl has the bottom is up, that's where Polaris is, and the rim of the bowl is on the ground. That's also where the sun would go around, from your perspective at the North Pole.
So remember, this is important. These are the actual sun and stars, but here's how we see them. And by the way, guys, Iru has modeled this in multiple different 3D modeling softwares, and even the computer graphics know that this is exactly how it renders out. They know it. This is exactly what you do get when you render it, looking at it from a POV, first-person view type of perspective, right? Because, again, we don't see things from the side-on views that the Globers want to make everything and do all their calculation on. It just doesn't work that way. So, and again, how do we say this? Well, you can prove this by looking up, right? So if you see an airplane or the sun or anything coming at you, you will originally see it on the horizon. You will see it come up over to the top of you. And then as it goes over the top of you and starts flying away from you the other way, it will start dropping down to the horizon again, right? So as it's traversing across here, you're actually picking it up as rising and falling down. And that's exactly how our perspective absolutely does work. And this can be done not only by ours, like I said, but also the fact that the firmament can do the exact same thing, same type of thing, or enhance or change the variables on this a little bit is also another, nail in the coffin, frankly, for the globe. So let's continue on this. So think about this, first of all, as, well, I'm going to let him do
as
this
you
right
head
here.
south, the solid bowl starts to tip onto its side. And so that, let's say you travel 3,000 miles south of the North Pole, everything would be rising in the northeast, sweeping out over the southern sky, and setting in the northwest.
That's right. So now let's look at that in terms of the telescope, right? As far as the telescope mount, where what you do is you calibrate that telescope mount on either the north or the south. But in this case, we're going to calibrate it on the North Star. Okay. So this, and what this calibration point on the North Star is, this gives us our axial point, right? The axis of rotation. So if we're calibrated on the North Star here, then if we go over here and we look at this star, whatever it is, star A, we're going to see it rise, come up at this angle, and then we're going to see it go over the top of us and drop back down on the other side, right? That's exactly what we're going to see. So again, this is the thing that makes, that kind of debunks the ball earth model, because again, they never take that first person perspective into view, and they simply have to. Instead of this, what they call this is, they say, well, no, this isn't how we see anything. We see everything just like this, and everything's really on a ball, right? It's like, no, it's not on a ball. And we know that because we know how our perspective works. And there is no evidence whatsoever that we would ever see it like this. In fact, all the evidence tells us that things that are at the same altitude going over the top of us will appear low on the horizon, rise high on the horizon, and then drop back down to the horizon, period. End of story. Sorry, Globers, it's over. Let's continue.
Like this, right? And if you go all the way to the equator, Polaris would now be sitting on your northern horizon. The solid bowl would be completely tipped on its side, and half of it would be below the horizon. And now all the stars would be coming up east to west. And so the sun would also rise east to west.
That's right. So what's also going to happen? So now that we're down here and we're looking to the south, and people are saying, well, what about that rotation that's going on? Well, remember, so we're going to see some stars rising, some stars falling. And it's not that we're ever going to see any one star rise up and come back down, but it's going to be kind of an optical illusion where you're going to see some stars rising, some stars falling. But what it's going to look like is a rotational point at any point that goes around you, right? So if you're looking south this direction, you're going to see it rise here and fall here. If you're looking south and looking in this direction, you'll see it rise here and fall here. You see how it works? It's very, very simple. And this is something that we can demonstrate every day of the week. And the fact that the ballers do not ever take perspective into consideration is their Achilles heel. It completely destroys their model.
And now that's
Bob, I don't know. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I don't know if anyone's mentioned this, but just before I got unceremoniously booted then, this is why an EQ mount works, isn't it?
This is exactly why an EQ mount works. That's right. EQ meaning equatorial mount, and what the equatorial mount does is it takes a reference point to either the North Star, which would be Polaris, or Sigma Octantis, which of course is not, first of all, is not a fixed point. It is a constellation that is comprised of multiple stars. And believe it or not, the stars that the ironic thing is, if you look at a planisphere, the stars that make up Sigma Octantis are actually 120 degrees apart, which is pretty freaking crazy. But you'll want to see the AJC in 1984's videos for that. But that blew my mind, and yet it made perfect sense.
Mm-hmm.
So there you have it. So I mean,
you can sorry, Bob, you can make an argument that, the angular resolution limit of our eyes at 6,000 miles, and this is with a perfect nitrogen, oxygen-based atmosphere, nothing else in there floating around, no water vapor, no particulates. There is 2 miles. 2 miles that will be unresolvable at that distance. So a mile up and a mile down from wherever you're looking, that's why the stars seem to disappear, or a plane just kind of seems to appear out of the air. It doesn't come up over the horizon. It's because you can't see it when it's that far away at the horizon.
That's
You
right.
don't see the plane until it gets within your angular resolution limit. That's why it kind of just appears out of nowhere in the air.
That's right. That's exactly right. So let me let P-Brain finish this out, and then I'm going to show you something
Hard
really
one
cool.
to visualize. Because if the stars are all rotating like a big disk around Polaris in the sky, a big flat disk, or if they're not a disk, they're a big dome, whichever one they are, if that's the case, and if it's a big flat disk and it's just perspective that's bringing the stars down, well then the people in the south say, hey, well the stars should be rotating just above the horizon, right? And stay equidistant to the horizon as they go around counterclockwise. That's what they'd say we should see. But that's not what we should see. We should see a clockwise southern rotation of the stars. See, we already know from crepuscular and anti-crepuscular rays.
All right, and I also want to point out that we will never see any of these things rotate a full circle. What we will get is an appearance, an illusion, if you will. Some stars will be going up and to the right, others will be going down and to the right, others will be going down and to the left, and others will be going up and to the left. Okay, but they nevertheless are different stars in different positions. They are not, none of them will ever completely make this rotation around, because you have to remember, day and night, this whole perspective that we're looking at here actually goes around the outside of the dome one time every 24 hours. And that's exactly what we see. And that is why that we can see those, stars of Sigma Octantis, the member stars of that constellation, which are 120 degrees apart on a planisphere, appear to make a rotational point on the horizon, but they really don't. Okay.
Yeah, this is one of those ones that's quite difficult to get your Swede around, but once you've done the research and looked into it, it's absolutely correct, or it makes perfect sense, put it that way.
Yeah, I agree. So let's go back.
Why southern rotation of the stars. See, we already know from crepuscular and anti-crepuscular rays how perspective works on a grand scale. I mean, that's over 12,000 miles. You see the sun rays diverging out from the sun, and then perspective converges them down to the other horizon. That's over a 12,000 mile span. Yeah.
Yep. So that's fabulous. And I've pointed this out several times before, but if you take the sun and the moon and you triangulate them, the sun actually comes out to be around 3,900 miles, and the moon comes out to be about 3,400 miles up, with the way that they look. And what's interesting about that is if you take and you were to say, take a light and rise it up to those elevations, 3,400 and 3,900 miles respectively, and you calculate a distance to the horizon, what you get is approximately the half the circumference of the Earth. Isn't that interesting? I find that absolutely mind-blowing, to be honest with you. I've talked about that many times before, but that's just another one of those things, they're part of the preponderance of evidence that absolutely annihilate the globe model, absolutely kill it dead to rights. Okay, so now, why do I say that the firmament is why do I say that there is a firmament? Well, first of all, we know that in order to have a gas pressure, right, you have to have a container. There must be walls on the container, because otherwise you can't have that pressure on the container, right? So now there are other channels that don't want to say, well, there's a firmament that's there, but logical deduction tells you that it must be there. It absolutely must be there. But other than logical deduction and the fact that we do have pressure, what else tells us that it must be there? Well, there's all this evidence that appears that NASA never has and never can go anywhere above, let's say, 60 to 70 miles, right? And this, by the way, is the point supposedly where outer space actually begins, right? 62 miles. What do they call it? The
Cartman line. Or Carmen line.
Carmen line. Yeah, Cartman. Cartman line.
Respect my authority.
Respect my authority. So we got the Cartman line up there. And that's at 62 miles, right? And we have sprites and elves. We have these vertical electrical discharges that discharge from clouds that are significantly further down. They discharge up. And where do they flatten out at? 62 miles. That's exactly where they flatten out at. So it's like, okay, well, that's pretty weird. So, and this, guys, there is a ton of evidence for this. We also have these things called laser guide stones, right? Laser guide stars. Well, what are these things? Well, supposedly, supposedly these laser guide stars, they take and they fire a 45 watt laser or something like that are mounted to these large observatories, right? And they fire it up onto what is called the sodium layer, right? Well, what the hell is that all about, right? But so what we find out is that this sodium layer, is starting at around 90 kilometers, right up here. Let's see, where does it say this? Eliminated sodium atoms located in the atmosphere, 90 kilometers altitude, right? So between 90 and 110 kilometers, or between 60 and 70 miles, essentially, right? I think 62 miles is probably a perfect point to put it, right? Because that tells me that something physical is there, right? And they say, well, that's stupid. You know, what else do you have? Well, okay, how about we look at this? Let's say CSU. What is that headline? Do you remember which one I'm talking about, guys? The CSU and MIT.
Is it the sprites?
No, the impenetrable shield, I think, is the MIT. Is that it? UCLA graduate. Let's get rid of the MIT. You know which one I'm talking about, where MIT and CSU wrote the article about the impenetrable shield.
Oh, yeah, space.com, wasn't it? Oh, no, it was in The Guardian. It was all over the place, wasn't it?
It's everywhere. Yeah, where the hell is it?
Yeah, we had like a Star Trek, like invisible shield.
That's it. Yep. Okay, so let's do that. Star Trek.
Like a force field, I think.
Star Trek like shield. CSU. Here we go. All right, Colorado EDU. This was backed up by MIT. You know, so they say it's 7,200 miles, right? But of course, they're basically full of crap on their estimates. And if they are guesstimating by, you know, they're trying to set these through optics like the firmament or anything like that, who knows how high it could be. But the point is that they say things like it's almost like these electrons are running into a glass wall in space, somewhat like the shields created by force fields in Star Trek that used to repel alien weapons, right? And it goes on and on and on, saying that not electrons, absolutely nothing can get through this shield, right? Now, this is from MIT and CSU, guys. So if you don't want to believe the old conspiracy theorist Bob here talking about laser guide stars and how they can write on this supposed sodium layer, and why in the hell would there be a sodium layer at 62 miles? Well, then fine, then believe that. But now, a lot of people have said, well, okay, so really, if it's the way the flat Earth is, that means that above 62 miles, and the sun and the moon are inside this firmament, then it would get really hot there, and it gets really, really cold there. And to that, I say, does it really now? Look at what we have here. Look at this temperature profile, right? As we go up through the troposphere, then to the stratosphere, then to the mesosphere, and now look it up here. It goes up as high as 1,500 degrees Celsius. And this is a low estimate, by the way, guys, because Wikipedia themselves say 4,500 degrees Fahrenheit. But as soon as it goes above this Kármán line, 100 kilometers right here, bada bing, look what happens. So this would be where the sun and the moon would reside. Wow, look at that heat change. What more evidence do you need? I mean, guys, It's
would
right
it make
there.
sense to say that the moon would be at the 100 kilometers and the sun would be nearer the, I don't know, sort of 170 kilometers? Because
The sun would be higher. Yes, absolutely. But the point is the 100 kilometers seems to be the lower limit. And this 100 kilometers, like I said, this boundary right here, right when it gets really hot, starts getting really hot, is where we can write things on the firmament. We can write things, in the supposed sodium layer, which makes no sense whatsoever. Why would there be a layer of sodium there that would light up? That's just absurd, point blank. Okay. And again, we see sprites and elves discharge up and they flatten out right at this boundary line right here, the 100 Karman, the 100 kilometer, the Karman line, right? Where they're going to argue where space begins. How much freaking evidence do I have to bring, right? There's tons of it, tons and tons and tons of it. And I also have a whole crap ton of documents that are put out by the government that talk about the firmament and its brightness studies and all kinds of stuff like that. So if you don't want to believe me, then maybe you're going to believe the government and the U.S. Army and how they're doing brightness tests on the firmament, reflectivity tests.
I was going to say this isn't necessarily your data either. This is using their own evidence to hang themselves.
That's absolutely right. John, that's absolutely right. I am using their data, their university studies. They are telling us that something is up there. We have physical evidence there is something is up there. We see sprites, elves, discharge, flatten out up there. We can write up there with a freaking laser beam. All of a sudden, when you get inside that boundary where the firmament is supposed to be, the temperature goes up to 4,500 degrees Fahrenheit. It's like, wow, dudes. Everything we are saying about the flat earth is apparent right in their own data.
Well, and you just said my favorite one right there, Bob. There is a discharge taking place. Discharges do not take place unless there is a surface to connect to. I mean, there is St. Elmo's fire, but to believe that could be St. Elmo's fire starting at the ground or even at the clouds and going that high up, nothing like that has ever been seen measured or anything like that. So in order to have a discharge, that electrical lightning bolt, there has to be two surfaces that it's touching.
Yes.
Connecting that circuit. There is no such thing as an ionosphere. It is a made-up thing that has never been recreated in a lab.
That's right.
Maxwell changed Ampere's equation simply on the fact of necessity. They needed something up there that created that positive charge that they're getting from the atmosphere. So they just made it up.
That's right. And what else do we have that offers that proof? Well, how can you possibly get an electrostatic gradient that goes at 100 volts per meter all the way up it's been measured up supposedly as high as 50 kilometers, and logic would dictate that it has to go higher than that because we see the vertical discharges upwards, which are hitting at 100 kilometers, which are then flattening out, right? So what that's telling us is that we have the Earth as one charge potential. We have the lower limit of the firmament at 100 kilometers, or the Karman line at 62 miles, which would be the anode. And when we do this, what it does is it creates an electrostatic field. Now, let me show you something, guys. You've all seen this before. University of Bristol. SITY of Bristol. Spider ballooning. Now, you've all heard me talk about, Zack too. Zack talks about this, our electrostatic model of gravity. And essentially what is being done, NASA says that they balloon the satellites supposedly by putting out a tether, right, into the atmosphere and then changing the charge potential of it. Well, in order to do that, you have to have something for it to interact with, right? So we know that this field is there. Right. We also know that nature's creatures take advantage of this. And I'm sorry if you've all seen this before, but this is really good. But what University of Bristol did in this particular video right here is they duplicated for the spiders a field in which they could sense this electrostatic presence, right? That is created by a cathode on the bottom, an anode on the top, and a gradient of electrostatic energy that is inside of it. As soon as the spiders were able to recognize and sense this static charge, they were able to literally then charge a silk thread that came out of their abdomen, change the charge potential on it, and it allowed them to fly around wherever they wanted to without even having wings. Some of the best aviators in the animal kingdom don't even have wings. So I'm going to play this, and then I think, I don't know what else to say, man. There's so much evidence for a firmament, for this electrical construct, that we are inside of something here, guys. And it goes much further than that. And if you guys think this is crazy, wait till I expand on what's really going on with the firmament. Some of you are going to really like that. But anyway, let's watch this really quick, 3 minutes.
Of all the great flyers the world has ever known, it may come as a surprise that one of the best aviators in the animal kingdom doesn't even possess wings. Spiders, instead, use long fans of silk to carry them through the air, often for many hundreds of miles, in a process known as ballooning. They have long been known to have flown the nest in such a way. Charles Darwin himself marvelled at hundreds of tiny spiders landing on the Beagle while out at sea, and later recorded how they took off from the ship with great speeds even on a calm, windless day. During this time, there were two theories for how ballooning worked. The first theory, and the most obvious explanation, was that long strands of silk emitted by the spider catch the wind and the associated drag forces pull the spider aloft. But spiders will only balloon on days where the wind is a gentle breeze, which raises the questions of how there'd be enough force to pull the silk from the spider's spinnerets, and how could heavier spiders even become airborne at all. The second theory was that atmospheric electricity could also provide the force needed to get the spider aloft. Similar to how your hair lifts to stand on end when you rub a balloon on your jumper, spider silk could be lifted into the air by natural electrostatic forces in the atmosphere. These electric fields are present at all times all around the world, but are most noticeable during thunderstorms when they are at their strongest. Surprisingly, until now, the electrostatic theory of spider ballooning had never been tested. In our lab at the University of Bristol, we isolated spiders from any airflow or atmospheric electricity and generated our own controlled electric field at levels found in nature. In response, the spiders began to change their behaviour to perform tiptoeing, where they straighten their legs, raise their abdomen and release silk. This behaviour is only ever seen when a spider wants to balloon. Furthermore, once the spider was aloft, its altitude could be controlled by turning the electric field on and off. This demonstrates that spiders can balloon using electrostatic forces alone, but in all likelihood, they would use a combination of both wind and electricity to balloon in their natural environments. So how do the spiders detect these electric fields? In this experiment, it was also observed that the minute sensory hairs on the spider's exoskeleton were similarly moved by the electric field. We can then infer that spiders can feel the charge in the air using the same sensory hairs they would use to detect a breeze. The results of this study show us that electrostatic forces could be an integral part of spider ballooning. And by fully understanding the mechanisms behind it, we can better describe population dynamics, dispersal, and ecological resilience, all of which are important for global ecology.
All right. So this is absolutely amazing, guys, but I have footage, and I don't have it pulled up right now, but believe me, I've got it, and I've played it several times on Globebusters that show NASA experts testifying, saying that, well, some of the ways that we control our satellites, right, even though we know it's bullshit about satellites, They say that they will release a tether into space, and if you go NASA tethering, actually, let's see what we can do. Let's see, NASA satellite tether. Let's actually see what that looks like, even though we know it's BS.
I remember Jim McCanney talking about this. That's exactly what I was just thinking. The way they screw everything around, they call spider ballooning, and it makes me wonder whether, and they show us satellites being launched on balloons, it makes me wonder whether it's satellite webbing, and whether they've perfected this technology, whether you can just, I mean, it's all kind of, it's scalable, isn't it? I mean,
exactly. That's exactly right, John.
Lift?
And so what's happening here, even though now this, I don't even know what the hell this is, to be honest with you, but what NASA is telling you is that this is a huge, long space tether, right? Which basically they release off the satellites, and then they change the charge potential on it, just like the Spider does, and it causes the satellite to go up and down. Now, here's the really crazy part about this. Satellites on balloons are controlled in exactly the same way. And they admit this, and I have this footage as well. And I can't remember what the hell it's under off the top of my head, but I do have it. And it's basically what they do is they have these balloons that are up there, and like the Google Loon projects and stuff like this. And actually the Google engineers are even talking about it, where they will go up there to 100, 150, 200,000 feet. And of course, at that level, there really are no winds. The winds are very, very quiet. So how do you get things to go up and down, or how do you get it to manipulate around? Well, if you go down quite a ways, then you can get into these extreme high winds of loft. But when you get above 100,000 feet or better, the winds become very, 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 very quiet, because there just isn't that much wind up there. So how do you raise it going up and down? Well, NASA tells us point blank again that they release a tether off the balloon / satellite, whatever, and they change the charge potential on that tether. And that is what allows the satellite / balloon, whatever, to go up or down. Now they're saying it both happens. The Google people are saying they do it on the Loon project. NASA says that they do it on satellites, which of course we know is bullshit, because that just isn't happening. Spiders do it with their ballooning. In other words, this is part of this so-called anti-gravitic propulsion. In other words, if you take a tether, a very long tether, which collects a high degree of electrons, if you will, and I don't know what other word to use for that, because I know somebody's going to come back and say, oh, those don't actually exist. But let's just say...
You could just say electric potential.
Yeah, okay. So it collects a high degree of electric potential and allows then an attraction or a repulsion to either go towards or away from that firmament at 62 miles or earth ground, right? Depending on how they charge it. All right. All of this stuff this is not fantasy. This is not conspiracy theory, except of course for satellites being out in space doing it. But all of this stuff is provably. So NASA is telling you partially the truth. They're just trying to tell you that this is all going out on, 26,000, 23,000 miles out into space, which is nonsense. It isn't. So there you have it. And like I said, I maintain that there is no way that we can go above 60 or 70 miles at most from the Earth. And all of the rocket launches, there's another one. Why do all the rocket launches arc off and come right back down long? I mean, they're still well within our visual acuity, right? If they were really up as high as they said that they are, over 100 miles, we wouldn't be able to see them. Not at all. Again, you have to understand your visual acuity. You have to understand the inverse square law of light. It's just nonsense.
Well, yeah, just like the airplane appearing out of nowhere, that thing should disappear into nothing right in front of your eyes. You wouldn't be able to see it anymore. Once it hit, I mean, the airplanes, you can't see them at maybe 20 miles away?
That's the
Once
fact,
they get
Jack.
about 20 miles flying away, the airplane's gone. You can't see it. So you wouldn't see something roughly the same size, 50 miles up. You wouldn't see it. It
Nope.
just doesn't work.
What it is NASA banked on nobody questioning them. I mean, that's really, they got away scot-free with so much for so long. They just kind of got lackadaisical about things, I think, because they never counted on people actually going back and checking to see if, whether or not their claims are viable. And in fact, when you do go back and double check their claims, they are not viable.
They didn't bank on flat earthers, basically.
That's right. Yeah, they didn't. They never saw us coming.
Nope, they never did. And, and here we are putting it all together with their own proof. That's the beauty. I'm using Wikipedia, right? I'm smashing them with their own stupid, studies and their own university Star Trek shields and all of this stuff. And again, now guys, I want you to think about something, right? They tell us also that our magnetic field, which is supposedly going on up there at about this same altitude, right? Is protecting us from X-rays and gamma rays and all kinds of stuff like that. Yet somehow it manages to let a little small bandwidth of VHS transmission out, for Voyager and the moon missions, right? How did they figure out that was going to let that particular frequency spectrum through? How did that happen? That's amazing.
Bit of a Hail Mary, wasn't it? I mean, they would have been incommunicato if they'd got it wrong.
Yeah, they would have been screwed big time.
Hail Mary, I love that.
So anyway, that's what I'm saying. And like I said, I can come up with evidence all day long. And and again, a lot of it is from the military, from NASA itself, from universities, from corporations. Dude, they're their own worst enemy. They really are. But what they're counting on is you not being able to put it together, or especially not having anybody put it together for you, where you can critically think about it, look at it and go, wow, these guys are really a bunch of scumbags, aren't they? So there you have it. All right, so that's about all I have on that. And let's see, I'm not sure if I had one other thing or not. Now I'll cover that next time. I think that's probably going to be good for a show today. So is there anybody else wanted to say about any of this or bring up any other specific things, or should we think about calling it a show?
Yeah, I want to bring up one thing. I saw some questions in the chat about people asking, why are you talking about flat Earth when there's so much going on in the world right now? And we won't even talk about the censorship part of it.
Yeah.
If these people wake up to the fact that they've been lied to on such a grand scale about where they live, then they're a lot more willing to accept that the governments will lie to them about just about anything then. This is like the jumping off point. If you can get your head around flat Earth and realize that you're being lied to this much, then you can start seeing through all the other deceptions. It gives you the glasses to start picking apart all the different lies. That's why we do this. That's why this is important.
Yeah, well said. Well said. And the fact why we're not talking about needles and arms and things is because we can't on this platform. Do you want to see the channel struck, gone, not here anymore?
That'll happen. That's exactly why we have Rockfin, guys.
I mean, I could talk for hours about things that are going on in the world, but I can't do it here.
Nope.
Pure and simple. So, yeah.
So that's why, we're doing the best we can do within the confines of YouTube. And on Rockfin, we have no confines. And, it's not a matter of us gatekeeping. Like I said, Rockfin offers us as creators a level of protection. It gives us a certain degree of income that we can make, which is great. Because honestly, guys, for the past 6 years, Globebusters has done this for absolute 100% total free, right? Didn't charge anybody anything, and we're still not charging anybody anything. We have only, gone to another platform, which, like I said, the paywall in and of itself is a mechanism to keep us safe from Orwellian laws that are going to be coming out basically declaring us as some sort of radical, whatever they want to call us. You get the idea, right? So,
enemies of the state.
Yeah. But if it's behind a paywall, that means people are choosing to pay for it, and it is not something that is readily available directly to the public, right? So that's why we did
when
it
you
this way.
go on to YouTube, you're pretty much forced to watch one channel and one channel only. You have no sort of options there, of course, right?
Yeah, exactly. So that's why we do it. But yeah, Zach is right, and we're gonna keep doing this as long as we can. But I got to tell you, I got hit with a really ridiculous, supposedly a community guideline strike on the Glowbusters 2 channel. Which does, of course, the 24/7 stream. You guys know that. I have a feeling they're trying to set me up to take it down. If so, we'll just take it somewhere else. It doesn't matter. I mean, if they do that, great, whatever. But, it's been going for all these years, and we are not putting anything inflammatory on it at all. But, they're just basically saying, oh, well, we warned you about this a couple times, so now we're going to give you a strike. And they're saying, this next time this can happen, whatever. So if they do it, well, great, whatever. We'll find another place. One thing I will tell you is that the Glowbusters 2 channel is on the Sun Moon, the Flat Earth app that David Weiss puts out. I don't know why I can't even remember the name of it.
It is the Flat Earth, Sun, Moon, and Zodiac Clock app by Blue Water Bay. If you get an app that is free with that same name, do not send David a message or an email telling him your app sucks. That is not David's. It is $2.99, the price of a warm beer, half a warm beer nowadays. And yeah, anything that you want to share with someone and show them, all those videos that Google censors and doesn't allow you to find out here on YouTube, they're all in there. You push a couple buttons, you're right there. It's a great gift to give somebody to try to help wake them up.
Yep, exactly. So here's the deal, guys. If YouTube takes down the Glowbusters 2 channel with the Glowbusters 24/7 feed on it, where you will be able to find it is because the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to call up David, and I'm going to say, David, they got me. Here's where I put it up, whether it's going to be on another YouTube channel or whether it's going to be on DLive or wherever we wind up putting it. He will then link the app directly to it, and it's one of those apps where you go in there and you hit the little spider web looking thing, and the first app in there, upper left hand corner, it says Glowbusters 24/7, and it says better than CNN, and that will link you wherever it is to the Glowbusters 24/7 Glowbusters 2 feed. So there you have it. So, and just spread that around, because that's a resource. I put that up there for a reason, because that's some of the best material that over the past 6 years that we've been doing this, I've been collecting it, and it is all being shown there on the Glowbusters 2 channel, and that's just something that we don't want to lose touch with that, believe me. So, and let's see what's on. I'm gonna just bring it right there. There it is. Glowbusters 2 24/7 Flat Earth. There it is, and it will always be somewhere, but it's always going to be on that Flat Earth, Sun, Moon, and Zodiac app. So there you have it.
It's a brilliant resource, because every time I look at it, I've been in this for 6 years or so, and every time I look at it, I realise that I've forgotten more than I actually remembered, and it's all covered on that Glowbusters 24/7. Love it.
Yeah, it really is. And anytime there's something that is exceptional, I will add it to this. There's well over 2,000 videos on it that are in a continuous rotation going on constantly. And it's weird because, it's been running for so long. It's like I've seen all these videos so many times, but no matter how many times you see it, it's still really good information. And, it's just a great resource.
It sharpens your knife constantly.
Yes, it does. So there you have it. All right, guys, I think we're going to call it a night. So, John, I guess I'll start with you. If you have anything that you want to say or anything you're going to be working on, just feel free to mention it. Otherwise, we will move on.
Yeah, great show, guys. Had a good time with you, as always. A lot of fun. And yeah, I've got content brewing, so just keep a check on the Morgile channel on YouTube for new content coming up soon. And other than that, I had a great time and a good show. Love you guys.
All right. Awesome. Thank you so much for that, John. Appreciate it. And we'll catch you on the next one. And okay, so, and then Mr. Savage, John, we will go to you next. And do you have anything that you want to bring up at all?
Well, like I said, I've got plenty of things I'd like to bring up, but nothing that can be brought up on this channel. But yeah, no, hanging in there. Yeah, by my teeth. Yeah, love the show. Thanks for the invite. And yeah, many more to come, hopefully.
All right, beautiful. Thank you much for joining us tonight. We appreciate it. And last but not least, Zack, good times for all. What do you got coming up, sir?
Friday early, 5 a.m. Eastern. I'll be over there on TFR with Ironworks. Also can be found on Iron Realm Media on YouTube. We do a show every Tuesday and Friday morning. That's why I'm so good at plugging Dave's app. I do it on there all the time. So it's just, yeah, it's memorized. It just comes out. I got it all from Dave too. That's how he plugs it. So yeah, I just learned from the best and go with it. But yeah, and then Friday night, we're actually having a very, very special guest. It will be her first time back on a Flat Earth platform in quite a while. I'm not going to drop any names. We like to keep it nice and quiet over there. But yeah, if you want to see a blast from the past who's getting ready to make her comeback, come on out and check us over on Iron Realm Media Friday night for Have No Sphere.
Yes. Yes, I know who that is. And you might find some surprises also at the Flattoberfest as far as people like that as well. So, like I said, we've got plenty of other surprises that are coming up. So many activities that are planned. I mean, Karen is absolutely killing it. She's going to make this better than any Flat Earth International conference that was out there. No offense to Robbie, because believe me, they were killer. But Karen just has her own style, a little bit different way of doing it, and she's doing a fantastic job. And she and Cami and a lot of people are involved in actually setting it up. But Karen is the force behind the effort, and we got to appreciate her for all that she does. So thank you so much, Karen B, for that. And you are a rock star. So, all right, guys, we will be back on Sunday, at which point we'll be talking about something, but I'm not sure which. I may go back. Jeran and I were talking. We may go back to at least spending a half hour or so on YouTube and kind of giving an overview of what we will be talking about on the Rockfin. Obviously, we want to get as many people over on the Rockfin platform as possible, for the good of everybody, honestly. But so I think we're going to go ahead and go back to at least maybe 30 minutes on Sunday will be shown on YouTube for free before we kick over to Rockfin and then start talking about all the stuff that we can't talk about on YouTube. But so if you can join us, that's great. If not, like I said, this is why I created the Wednesday night show. For you people, I'm not going to forget about you. You've been with us for a long time. We appreciate you. And you've been with us from the very beginning. And believe me, I won't forget that. So that's it for us, guys. And we will see you next Sunday. Until then, be good to each other. Don't lie to each other. Open your mind, because there's truth inside. Peace out, everybody.
Peace.
Peace.